Hello, everyone. This is another Black Conservative. I am Ryan Boland. Thank you all for joining me. For those who do not think there is an agenda to confuse the sexuality of our youth, you might want to reconsider your position after I read this article. Because apparently the comic strip for the Popeye cartoon that many of us from the olden days, I use that term olden days, but for many of us that are up there in age, that used to watch the cartoon and perhaps read the comic books, there's going to be a sexual makeover by a cartoonist who wants to basically bring in more ethnicity or more ethnic groups into the cartoon, as well as create characters that are not heterosexual. So you already know what that's about. So we're going to get into this article. Let's get right into this. And the article starts off as, after nearly 100 years in existence, the Popeye comic strip is reportedly getting a woke makeover, with the strip's latest cartoonist promising more ethnic diversity and, quote, more characters who aren't heterosexual. So if you aren't heterosexual, you don't need to add nothing to that. You already know what that means. Cartoonist Randall K. Millanan described the Popeye character as being, quote, gender fluid, citing old episodes in which the plot required Popeye to dress in drag. Now listen to this. This is what it is. This is his interpretation. I want to bring in more characters who aren't heterosexual, Millanan said in an interview with the San Antonio Express News. I don't live in that purely straight white world, and I don't think a lot of other people do either. Now, excuse me, I have not seen a photo of this individual that's saying this. I don't know if this cartoonist is white. I don't know if they're black. I don't know if they're mixed or what, Asian, but I don't know. But what I'm going to assume, I'm just assuming that they are white. Now, I don't want anyone to misunderstand this, but I see a lot of whites supporting this anti-white worldview. And it's disturbing to me and personally disgusting to me personally, because it's like, it's almost like one person said they have this sense of self-loathing and walking around hating themselves for basically, in an indirect way, for basically being white. They hate themselves. How could you live with a sense of importance and a sense of purpose and strength and self-worth if you're going around hating on your own race, hating on your own ethnic group? Because that's basically, as far as I'm concerned, what they're doing. Because I see a lot of white people in terms of the liberal establishment hating on white people. You hate your own self. You can't exclude yourself from the hatred that you're trying to spew on everyone else that's white. You're included in that category as well. It amazes me. But let's go on. He says, I don't live in that purely straight white world, and I don't think a lot of other people do either. So here we go right off the bat. This is a racial thing. This is a wokey woke thing. You see that right then and there. And it goes on to say, in one of the strip's biggest changes, Olive Oil's sister-in-law, Celinda Oil, is now Afro-Latino. Now, I don't remember, and I used to watch the cartoon quite a lot, but I've never read the comic book. So clearly, I mean, obviously, this is a reference to the characters in the comic book. Those of you who have read the comic book and still read the comic book, you would know. I don't know anything about the comic book. All I know is about the cartoon. Okay, but now they have changed. He says Olive Oil's sister-in-law is now Afro-Latino. Celinda has traditionally been portrayed as a white woman with dark bobbed hair. So let me say this. If traditionally she was a white woman because, Olive Oil was white, if she was a white woman, why would you change her to someone who is not? What's the purpose in that? People who read the comic books, who read the comic books then and read the comic books now, I'm pretty convinced that they're not thinking about racial ethnicities, for the most part, thinking about racial differences. How come there aren't more Asians? How come there aren't more blacks in this? How come there aren't more of this, more of that? I don't think they're really concerned about that. When they read these comic books, and particularly Popeye comic books or any comic book for that matter, I don't think they're really thinking about this. They're thinking about how being entertained. They're identifying with the characters in the comic books or in the cartoons. They're just identifying with the characters, or they're simply liking to be entertained. That's all they're concerned about. But you get these Marxist professors, or not professors, but Marxist sympathizers into our institutions, and they keep this stuff going. They keep it stirred up. He goes on to say, Mullen took issue with the way Popeye has recently used men dressing as women for comic relief. Whatever that means. He says, but that wasn't always the case, he told the newspaper. If you go by today's definition, Popeye was gender fluid. Now, correct me if I'm wrong about gender fluid, but gender fluid means that you can change to any gender at any time based on what you want or what you feel. So if you feel like you want to, if I'm as a man, if I feel like I want to be a woman, I can be a woman at any moment. But if I feel like I don't want to be at any moment, I can be a cat at any moment. So I would guess gender fluid. Correct me in the comment box below, because this is a bunch of nonsense. But I believe that's what gender fluid means. Okay. So as a matter of fact, let's get it. Let's look this up. So let me make a correction. Accordingly, is denoting or relating to a person who does not identify themselves as having a fixed gender. So in other words, someone who's gender fluid is basically someone who they don't identify as having a fixed gender. You know, they don't. In other words, someone who's gender fluid is like, okay, and it's kind of like related to what I said. You know, at any moment I can be anything. I'm fluid. That's basically what it is. So the definition is my definition is basically close to the textbook definition. You want to call it a textbook definition. I can be in any gender that I want to be at any given moment. I don't have a fixed gender. So according to this person, he says, if you go by today's definition, Popeye was gender fluid. Now, what does he mean by this? Let's go on further to see what he means by this. He says, during the strip's early days, Popeye once met an orphaned girl who didn't have a mother. So Popeye dresses up as a woman and says, I'm your mom now, Melanin said. And it's not a joke. It's Popeye being the kind character he originally was. Someone who do whatever he could do. Someone who do whatever he could for someone down on their luck, like an orphan. Now, that is the silliest thing in the world. I don't believe that that's what that meant. What he's saying is that, because first of all, what he's saying is that the creators of that particular comic strip was portraying inwardly that Popeye was gender fluid, that he could be any gender at any time, and that's basically what it was, and they were basically promoting it. That's what he's saying to me. But also, this doesn't in any way indicate that Popeye was gender fluid, because if we go by the definition of gender fluid, that he doesn't have any fixed gender, then I don't believe that's what Popeye was relating. What Popeye was simply doing, as far as what I can see, was that he was simply trying to help a young girl, or help an orphan, not a young girl, but help an orphan. Someone who's gender fluid is based on what they feel, not what they want to do in terms of helping people. People who are gender fluid are not trying to necessarily help anybody. They just feel like, if as a man, if I feel like I want to be a woman, I want to be a woman. I'm not trying to help anybody. If I feel like I want to be a cat, I want to be a cat. I'm not trying to help anybody. I just don't have a fixed gender. I'm not trying to help anybody. Popeye, yes, he had a clear heart. He had a clean heart and he wanted to help people, but he wasn't being gender fluid. He wasn't saying, well, you know what? I mean, I just feel like I want to be a woman right now. So let me dress up as a woman. Let me dress up as a woman so I can help this orphan. Let me dress up as a woman or a mother so I can help this orphan. That wasn't what he was saying. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't doing that. He wasn't saying, well, you know, I just feel like I want to be a woman, so let me dress up as a woman. That's what gender fluid is. Gender fluid and in its premise, in its basis, is based on what you feel. Just like a transgender. A transgender is a man or a woman who decides to be the other opposite sex because they feel like it. So I feel like I want to be a woman. I'm a woman at that moment. It's based on what you feel, not on helping somebody. So this interpretation is totally erratic. It's totally total nonsense. And that's the end of that article right there. It's total nonsense. Once again, this is just the left's attempt to basically confuse the sexuality of our young people. Remember, this is in a comic book. Why is everything focused towards the children? Think about that. Think about that. Just about everything when it comes to all this sexuality is always based or focused towards the children. Very seldom is it focused towards adults. Have you noticed that? Very seldom is it focused towards adults. It's always towards children. Gee, I wonder why. I don't need to reiterate that. I believe that there is an agenda, and that I read in the 45 communist goals that I read to you guys. I think it's goal number 26 or 27, where it talks about the communist insurgents. One of their goals was to promote homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal. And what I believe that we're seeing once again is the promotion of things that are degenerate and that are abnormal as normal. And this is clearly one of those expressions, in my opinion. So once again, we see this type of stuff going on. So going back to what I said early in this video, if those who don't believe that there is an actual agenda to confuse the sexuality of our children for some greater nefarious plan, which I'm not going to get into right here on this YouTube channel right now. If you don't believe that, then I think you might want to reconsider your position, because there's no reason whatsoever that this cartoonist needs to do this type of, there's no need for it other than to push and promote some agenda. And let me say this in the closing of this video. This person, this cartoonist, may not be aware of the damage that they're doing. They may not even be aware of that. They may honestly believe that they're doing something good because they've been indoctrinated with this mindset, this Marxist mindset. But Marxism is all about causing division, not unity. It's all about causing chaos and destruction, not unity. That's not what it's about. The purpose is to destroy the present establishment in order to recreate it into what the communists want. But in order to do that, you got to tear down what's already traditional. You got to destroy what is fixed into the society. You got to prove it's destructive. You have to demonize the traditions. You have to put down the founders of that country. You have to make them look evil and bad and just terrible people so that you can replace them with your communist buddies. That's what they have to do. So I think that this is what is going on. And this individual, this cartoonist, might not be aware of that. But to close on this, they might just be another useful idiot. I know those are strong words, but that's what I personally believe. What do you guys, what's your take on this cartoonist? What is your take? Do you think that there's an agenda? I believe there's an agenda to confuse the sexuality of our children. What do you believe? What do you believe about this cartoon, this Popeye comic strip? Do you think that's okay? Do you think it's innocent? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe to this video and this channel. God bless you all, and see you again on another Black Conservative.